Welcome to Learn to Live Stress-Free. This is Christine Wright with Dr. Robert Wright Jr., your go-to wellness coaches of www.stressfreenow.info. Our featured guest today is Dr. Ken Jennings, returning to continue our conversation on the critical role reinventing yourself plays in career success. Dr. Ken Jennings is an environmental scientist with over 25 years' experience in government, industry, and consulting. He has worked at the U.S. EPA headquarters and for Amoco, Shell, and Microsoft corporations. His areas of expertise include sustainability, energy, and climate change in Africa and the Caribbean. He is an adjunct professor of environmental management for the University of Maryland University Center and consults for major industries and governments. As Managing Director of K2J, recent speaking engagements include the African Presidential Roundtable on Energy Strategy for the 21st Century in Mauritius, the African Energy Indaba in Johannesburg, the African Presidential Roundtable on Energy Security in Johannesburg, the joint UK-US-Niger Investment Forum in London, Microgrid World Forum in Irvine, Compliance and Risk webinar Doing Business in a Regulated Africa. Dr. Jennings earned a B.S. in Geology and Geophysics from Yale, a Master's in Geology from the University of California, Santa Barbara, and a doctorate in Environmental Science and Engineering from UCLA. He is married and has one daughter. In his leisure time, Dr. Jennings enjoys playing basketball, traveling, and writing. Ken, we're happy to have you here again today. Audience, welcome. Hello, Ken.
Hi, Christine. It's great to be here. Hey, Bob.
Yeah, Ken, last time you just knocked the ball out of the park, so we're going to give you another opportunity. You know, that was a home run. Now you get a chance to do a Mr. October Grand Slam. Ken, there's so many aspects of your life that, you know, I just know a little bit about it, but what I do know is that you've lived a pretty full and exciting life, and in many ways you might be considered a Renaissance man. You're fluent in 5 languages. You've lived and worked in several parts of the world. You're an environmental guardian. You're a serious golfer. And you're also an ESPN sports enthusiast. I don't know if your team won, but in the Super Bowl this year. And, you know, you also have a loving wife and daughter, yet you remain very down-to-earth and humble. How important is keeping your ego in check and knowing more than one language in today's world for business success? I know in our last show you briefly touched on how keeping your ego in check is pretty important in the gym.
Yeah. Well, thanks. You're far too kind. I would say that starting with ego. Well, first, there are always a lot of people around you to keep you sorted out. My family, number one, my friends, number two, and but you know, it's something that I remember even from. I used to read a lot of comic books, and I remember this one sequence where Thor and Hercules were together, and Hercules wanted to beat up on Pluto some more, even after he had lost this epic battle. And Thor stopped him and said, only the weakling seeks to prove his strength at every turn. And I always remember that, and things related to that. And as you do, I think that it comes back to you in various and sundry ways. You know, I think that if you misuse your capabilities, or if you lord it over people inappropriately, it comes back to you. And I've just never wanted to be that way. And you know, that's not how I was raised, and certainly not how you know, my friends are, my family is, and so it really doesn't matter, you know, how anyone else behaves, because you know, you have to always know who you are, and you know, be satisfied with it, want to do better, and move on, and understand that even if you are there are places that I've been where I know I'm right. I know I'm, the person to do this, but people have said, oh, we want somebody else to do it instead. That's fine. You just go ahead. You make your case. If it doesn't work, then again, as I say, if you're versatile, if you are centered and positive, there's always something better waiting for you down the road. Now, we were going to talk about the second part of this question was what?
Oh, about knowing multiple languages. The fact that you are fluent in 5 languages. Many people that know you might not know that.
Well, that's very kind. I'm very careful with saying fluent. I will say I get around pretty well, and
well, Ken Jennings getting around is fluent for other people.
Okay. Point taken. Well, what happens is almost immediately you make a connection, and it's one thing to go somewhere where it's not unexpected. Having a man approach me in Brussels, asking me where the Haitian embassy is, in French because I'm on the street. And being able to respond to him is one thing. They're very happy at that. But being in Japan and telling asking for things from the hotel desk clerk in Japanese, or asking for directions on the street, and then understanding them, it seems to bring a smile to people's faces, and a connection. It similarly does on the continent. And one of the things I remember, when I went to UCLA was I was very focused on taking back one language anyway from the continent, because I know at least one was taken from my family. So I ended up studying Yoruba, and I've enjoyed it, and it again, it creates a very strong connection with folks when I'm able to use it. And then the last part of it is it's simply you just don't know where and how it will come in handy. When you talk to young people and they say, well, why, you don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. I'm a computer science person, or I'm a marketing person, or I'm this or that. Why should I bother taking language? And one of the stories I share is one year I was in Haiti with the owner of the company I was working for at the time. We were trying to get a contract to help dredge out the port there at Port-au-Prince. And we were talking to the director general of the Port-au-Prince, and we were having it. So Gary, the company owner, didn't speak French, so I was speaking with the fellow, and we were going back and forth, and it had nothing to do with engineering. It had nothing to do with geology. We were talking about French and West Indian literature, and that is something that you could never predict. And I guess I would extend it even to humanities in general, because there was another time I was in Barbados, and my client was the refinery of Mount Gay, the rum, and we were having lunch, and the client's sister was in from London, and we were just talking, and I mentioned George Lamming, famous Bajan author, and right then there was a connection made, because she knew that I knew something beyond the environmental science and the sustainability that I was bringing to her brother's company.
Ken, one of the things that you said that resonated with me, and I believe many people, using common sense, it makes sense when you hear it. So I'm just going to say what my experience has been, like yours. One of the things that, whenever I've been going through customs into a country where I don't speak the language is that, I'll ask, so, how do you say good morning? How do you say thank you? And how do you say goodbye? And so first, often there's the element of surprise. They're like, oh, he wants to know how do you say thank you and hello, surprise, and, good evening. And then, as you just mentioned earlier, when you use those phrases, which are just very simple, in the street, you're in a restaurant, you're trying to get a taxi, and the people see that you're trying. And often the experience has been, the smile would almost wrap around their faces, and this speaks to the point that I make often to people. When you travel, sometimes we don't think about the effect that we have on others. That when we come back from a trip, we're changed, but the people that we interact with are changed too. And so, picking up those few words, being able to say good morning, how are you? It's like an ambassadorial type thing. It seems like a minor thing, but the amount of goodwill that can be engendered in an instant by just saying, a couple of words and a good feeling, and sometimes it leads to the warm, unexpected invitation. The person invites you to their home or to the restaurant that you would never see as a tourist or a business person, and that in hindsight, that ends up being the best part of your experience.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
Ken, I just want to continue this conversation a little bit. You have had such a broad range of experience throughout your life. I mean, this shows in your education. Ken, you went to Yale College for your undergraduate education and doing your master's and your doctorate work. You were at UCLA and UC Santa Barbara. Did you ever feel conflicted with your alumni team loyalties or your pro team loyalties? We've spoken about this, previously in our conversations, with your being in Seattle, Washington, being in D.C. Where do your loyalties lie?
Inquiring minds want to know.
Yes. Well, we'll hope that I don't run afoul of some of my friends. But I grew up watching Bobby Mitchell and Charlie Taylor and Sonny Jurgensen. So despite the fact that I'm not a fan of the owner or necessarily the coach, I still can't help but always root for that team in Washington, D.C., for football. Now, my second favorite team is the Seattle Seahawks, since I've lived here for over 20 years. And unless they play each other, I have no conflict with that. Basketball is interesting. I went through a bit of an odyssey. I started off with the Bullets, and I was with the Bullets for a while. Then when Julius went to the Sixers, I'm sorry, but I had to go with the Sixers. And then as I spent more and more time in L.A., I ended up with the Lakers, and that's where I am now. Even though as miserable as they are right now, I'm with the Lakers.
You see, you're totally global here. I'm really enjoying this.
Wait, I just have to cut in. So, Ken, based on your explanation, what did you do when Dr. J was in the ABA? Because when he went from the Bullets to I could have my years mixed up, but
he was Virginia. He was with the Virginia Squires, right?
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, the ABA was the ABA. I liked so many of those guys in the ABA. It was just fun. But in terms of my team, I wore a Bullets shirt all the time, and that's how and that's how it was. But when Julius came to the Sixers, I love those guys. Except for George McGinnis, I never did like him. Sorry, George.
So now we're really getting the inside scoop. Ken, also, a moment ago, you mentioned the role that your family plays in keeping you grounded and keeping your ego in check. You and your wife, Marie, have been happily married for almost 26 years, you shared with us in our last interview, and you're parents to a high-achieving daughter who will be graduating Barnard College. Ken, in today's world, so many people suffer from conflicts in relationships and their divorces. Can you share more of your story of how you met Marie and any tips that you have for long-term marriage success?
Okay. So I met Marie through a fellow with whom I had gone to UCLA, who also ended up at EPA headquarters. And he approached me on numerous occasions about meeting this woman who was, down around the corner somewhere in what used to be the Waterside Mall. It was a huge place. And I kept putting him off. And so finally he just kept at it, and I went to meet her, and she looked at the two of us, and it wasn't the warmest of looks. So I just said, okay, here we go again. And then I just said, didn't think anything of it. Ran into her in the hallway, and she said, well, we need to talk. And so I said, okay. And then she explained to me that she didn't go out with people in the office. And I said, okay, I don't remember asking you out, but anyway, so we became friends and started talking. And so we talked for probably a couple of years, and then I think after that we started to go out. And we started to go out right about the time I was going to leave EPA and go to Oklahoma. And that was when she told me I was on the right track. Almost had to hit me in the head with the information. And so it picked up from there, having gotten the go-ahead, proposed and got married inside of 8 months of leaving Washington. So, and then, we have so much in common, and that it's really remarkable. She actually went to middle school with two of our classmates at Yale, and which is an unusual thing, and Bernetta Burns and Camille Simon. And
wow.
So, that was just another bit of serendipity.
Yeah, Bob and I always enjoy those serendipitous moments. You mentioned something in your courtship too that Bob and I often use, that it's in relationships in general, that she used those magic words, we need to talk. That strikes fear into people sometimes, but
well, let's be honest, usually when a woman says that to you, it's not a green light flag,
But
yes.
I like to say sometimes, to be fair, and so let's just say it like this: it is a signal to pay attention at the 100% level. You should be paying attention, and so Ken, I want to say two things here. I want to interject this. I'm actually cutting the guest off. We did a podcast with a friend, and he said, I'm cutting the host off. So now I'm using his line. I'm cutting off the guest. Yes. Two things I think are really interesting here. One, your story about how you met your wife is so lovely, and what struck me, and I believe will resonate with our audience, is the fact that underlying your marriage relationship was the relationship of getting to know one another as friends. So friendship is the foundation of your relationship. You liked one another as people, regardless of the fact whether or not you were dating. And I think Christine and I had that experience where we were friends for I believe about 18 months, and then I remember I think we dated for 8 days, and I think everybody was shocked because you dated for 8 days and got engaged, but they didn't realize we had been friends for 18 months. And
That's
then
right.
the other thing about your story, about the relationship with people who from your wife's childhood, we had the same experience. We were at the Afro-American event in New Haven several years ago, and I had not seen Tim McChristian in a while, and it turned out that my wife Christine and Tim's wife Debbie were in elementary school together, and Christine knew Debbie's sisters, etc. And we later came back and we found a photograph from Christine's 12th. I think she was 12 years old. There was Debbie's sister, and the cousins at Christine's birthday party. And so here we were, years later. Who would know that Tim McChristian's wife went to school with my wife in Brooklyn?
Exactly.
It's incredible.
It's incredible. It really is. You couldn't write this if you were paid.
That's true, and I've always told Bob that Brooklyn is a great place. There's another point in your story that I appreciate, and I think it's good for our audience to really key in on. You mentioned it with a bit of levity, that your wife gave you the information. She told you were on the right track. So there you had a good communication going on, that you weren't guessing where this relationship was going. And
or alternate view.
An
alternate view. This was the longest interview.
Yes. Slow man.
Interview for 2 years.
Yes. Yeah, I was slow man. Yes.
Right. I love it, Ken. Ken, let me ask you this question. You know a lot of people. One of the things I've been impressed with, you serve as the class secretary for for your class at Yale. And out of that process, you have made, a lot of friendships there and at other places. Can you tell our audience how important have the long-term friendships you've been able to make, how important those friendships have been to your career success and your overall enjoyment in your life?
Well, I would, in terms of the ordering, I would say that the friends have always been there to help keep me grounded, to help make me laugh, to give me sound advice when I need it. And so, you really can't envision going too far without family and friends to be there. In terms of working with folks who are really good friends, really haven't done so much of that. Although there are people with whom I work that now have become really good friends, and so I guess maybe that's not quite fair, but it doesn't seem to happen as often as the school kind of setting, because frankly, most of my closest friends I have made through kind of sports interactions. I was just staying with a friend of mine, one of my friends in San Francisco, and he has a pool table, and so they bought a new house, and then the people had a pool table, so they that was part of the deal. And he's not very good, and I beat him like a drum for like 7 games in a row.
Like a drum.
Yes, I did. And so then one of our classmates just had a birthday a couple days ago, Peter Clark. And Peter and I used to play pool and ping pong and bowl against each other. So I sent him, and in my wishing him a happy birthday, I said that I'll be seeing you at reunion. We'll have to find a pool table. I had to warn you that I just practiced a little bit, and I'm not feeling good for your chances. And so then he came back, well, I'm sure I'll be whipping you in that just like I whipped you at bowling. Now let's go back to the papers and find that, our averages were different by like the chip off of one pin in bowling. So I think he was overstating his victory there. But the point is that, most of my really close friends are people with whom, we've gone back and forth in one way or another over the years. And now I'm growing a golf group, so it'll be just as bad, I'm sure.
Audience, will be back in a moment with Dr. Ken Jennings.
Hi, I'm Dr. Robert Wright, Jr., the Stress Relief Doctor, co-host of the Learn to Live Stress-Free podcast series. I'm an author, speaker, and stress management wellness coach. My published study is the first to show the connection between stress reduction, grief recovery, nitric oxide spiking, and the relaxation response. And my practical application of this knowledge helps you relieve the stresses of everyday life. I have the tools to dissolve your pain points quickly and effectively. Email me to find out how you can start to feel better now at stressfreenow.info/contact. That's stressfreenow.info/contact. Have you been procrastinating about completing an important project or pursuing a treasured dream? Christine Wright specializes in helping her coaching clients to lay out clear, elegant strategies. She shows you how to quickly build your confidence to uncover and eliminate your habitual patterns of resistance and self-sabotage. Christine helps you discover those meaningful insights that will get you to do what works so you can celebrate your successes. Go to stressfreenow.info/contact to let Christine know that you're ready to live your ideal life now. Again, that's stressfreenow.info/contact.
Welcome back to Learn to Live Stress-Free. We're here speaking with Dr. Ken Jennings.
Hey, Ken, in a previous conversation, I shared with you how existential grief played out in my own life, how I was often rejected and ridiculed by various groups and individuals since they perceived me as being different. And when I mentioned that to you, you said, hey, Bob, it's not rejection, it's affirmation. I found that to be such an interesting and helpful explanation for those behaviors, although you weren't there at the time to give those to me. I still found them helpful. Can you explain to our audience what you mean by that phrase, Ken, and give an example from your own life how you handle rejection?
Okay. Well, sure. Again, it starts with being centered. If something happens, I remember my roommate senior year telling me, we were doing something, and he said, the thing I hate about you is if anything goes wrong, you just say, I'm better than that, and then you keep on going like it doesn't bother you. And I don't know that I would exactly translate it the way he does, but, I think that, well, let me give a couple of examples real quick and just tell you how it affects. Because, one of the main things is I connect the dots, right? So I don't take instance A in isolation. I connect it with everything else. And when I do that, you start to see the pattern, and then you understand it for what it is. When I was at UCLA, I had two friends, three actually, with whom I played basketball. And actually, we played intramural basketball together at UCLA, and we spanked, amongst other people, the football guys, which included Kenny Easley and Freeman McNeil and JoJo Townsell and Avon Riley and George Foster, the hurdler. We whipped them off the court. So that was basketball. So then they had a black law student flag football team. And one of the guys asked me to play with them. Now, so I said, okay. And so now we're out there playing or getting ready to play. Now, none of them played college football, like zero. So a couple of them ran track. One of them played basketball, something like that. But the rest of them were high school guys. And so when it came time to decide who was going to play what, I'm faster than all of them. I know more football than all of them, and so on and so forth. They had me playing outside linebacker. Christine, outside linebacker is kind of a marginal, out-of-the-way, minor role on a flag football team.
Okay.
And and I just said to myself, okay, I played in front of crowds. This is okay. I'm getting some exercise. And so we went through the season like that until we got to the playoffs. When we got to the playoffs, and they came up to me and they said, Ken, we want you to play quarterback and safety. Oh, well, why? If I'm just if I'm only good enough to be outside linebacker on this team of illustrious athletes, then why all of a sudden am I going to be the centerpiece of the offense and the defense? It's because they always knew the truth and wanted to do what they wanted to do anyway, right? So it never had anything to do with me. It only had to do with them. And, it was okay. I mean, because to me, I didn't want or need to be the quarterback so badly that it would bother me. Similarly, I just finished having this experience. So I was doing some work for one of the transit authorities in California, and work in the area of sustainability. And I was working as a sub-consultant to a very large architecture and engineering firm. And we did one task together, and the people with whom we were working, there were two women, one of whom had some undergraduate degree from Cambridge in planning, and the other one was pretty young, like, less than 30. And I think she had gone to MIT and somewhere else. And so, but they weren't technical. And the job was to develop engineering criteria for the client to use. So this is what we were to bring. And so we went through everything, and, they were they were prickly here and there over things that seemed a bit inane. For example, they asked us, we talked about putting an outline of a technical memorandum together for them to review before the process, and in fact, one of our people got a little over anxious and wrote the whole memo. So we said, okay, well, we're ahead of the game, handed them the whole memo, and somehow this was bad. Oh, you wrote the whole thing. How is this bad? I have no idea. But at the end of the thing, they just kind of went silent, and then I heard through the grapevine that they didn't intend to use me anymore because I'm pushy, and I'm trying to figure out how am I being pushy exactly, and what is being pushy. So what you're going to do is to stop. I'm going to stop being on this contract, and you're going to continue for something that you kind of made up. You couldn't critique the work. There was nothing bad about the work. There was nothing bad about the cost. There wasn't anything bad about the schedule. So, but you decided that you didn't want to work with me anymore. And I think that what was clear to me is when we had a workshop with the client in the room, the client was liking what I had to say more than he was liking what they had to say. And so, again, when you connect the dots, you just start to see that it really, it's people who aren't bringing it, trying to figure out a way to manage you, and so what has to happen is, okay, instead of fighting, instead of ice skating uphill against people like that, you do what you can, but as much as possible, you situate yourself with like-minded people. It's kind of like choosing friends. And so, that's it at the end of the day, I think.
Great, Ken. I thank you for that, because it's really important never to go into that mode, what's wrong with me kind of thing. What did I do? And in fact, we did a podcast with a woman named Sharon Saylor, who's a top management consultant. In fact, she's presented at Yale Business School and Harvard Business School and Stanford Business School, et cetera. And one of the things that she talked about was, to our utter surprise, and to her surprise too, when she came out with her book, which is a bestseller, I can't think of the name of it right now, she said that when the comments came, it wasn't a critique about anything she said in the book. Someone had looked at her photo of her, and she said, "Oh my, how can you be a communications expert and you have girthy arms?" So she said, out of all the things that she felt wounded by, it was some inane comment like that had nothing to do with the content, nothing to do with her expertise, or is what she said authoritative? Yes. Is what she said accurate? Yes. But the critique is that I don't like you because you have girthy arms. So we were trying to figure out what girthy arms were. Well, we knew right away it wasn't a compliment.
Yes.
But that's the type of thing, in terms of, as you're saying, that it's not that type of rejection, is actually affirmation. Is that and one of the things that I always remember that I use as to gird myself was when David Dinkins was mayor of New York. And as you recall, Donna Dinkins went to Yale, and I remember being startled when he was attacked in the media, and what were they attacking him for? They weren't attacking him for his policies. In this particular case, I remember this article. They were attacking him because they said that he changed his shirts too often, that he was too clean. That David Dinkins had a habit of change his shirt at least 3 times a day. Well, I said, well, golly, like Gomer Pyle, that's it. The guy's too clean. Right. So so thank you for that. So now, Ken, as we wrap up here, start to wrap up, I have to be honest. This question is a Yale advertorial. I want to be clear.
Okay.
So I want to say to you, as the 40th reunion event for the Yale class of 76 is fast approaching, as the official Yale class of 76 secretary, for those who might be interested, can you explain how you became class secretary and give some details about that upcoming event planned for New Haven?
Oh, how did I become I knew the past secretary and treasurer. I guess I've known most of them, but they asked me if I'd be interested, and I said, I would, and I guess they had floated the idea around to some people, and I guess it wasn't too objectionable, so they said, okay, let's put him to work. And as far as the reunion, we're about to send a letter out to everybody, and I've been tweeting. I'm going to start a Twitter thing, and the hashtag is #2 Bula 76 by 40. And
could you repeat that for the audience?
Yes, it's hashtag #2, just the 2. Bula, for Bula Bula, 76 by 40.
Okay, thank you.
And so I'm going to be sending out news items that way. But we're really looking for a great turnout. This is really a wonderful point in life where kids are grown, where we're looking at change in direction professionally, where we're really focusing on ourselves, and a lot of exciting history behind us. So, I'm thinking that we're going to have just an excellent time, and I can't wait. Looking forward to it.
Well, Ken, I think I mentioned to you in an earlier conversation, and I've been reading your posts in the Yale Alumni Magazine for years, even though I'm not class of '76. But I have to tell you that it's just an excuse for people to come out and feel young again and pretend that they are 18. 20, 22 years old, and have some reminisce about some really good times. And I have to say, and I think you agree with me, that we were very fortunate in that our college experience was very, 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 very wonderful, and for the most part, and that sometimes, I know in my particular case, I had been shocked when I've met people who did not have an excellent college experience. And so we were blessed in that way that, as you said, we got to whip some heads in the gym, and we, New Haven was a great town with lots of places to eat pizza and have other great experiences. And so in that way, we've been very blessed.
Definitely.
Ken, on another topic, you have done so much traveling. In your trips around the world, can you share with our listeners some of the important do's and don'ts when you're outside the country, and what are those, sensitive cultural points that you need to pay attention to?
Well, I don't know that I'm terribly expert, but here's what I know. The main thing, similar to Bob, is just trying to learn a bit of the language, and just for the pleasantry, at the very least. Make sure that you read the advisories, if there are any, and avoid foods in places where you may pick up a bug, and those kinds of things. Pay attention to your mosquito netting when you're in places where malaria or dengue are happening. So there are those physical things. Culturally, one of the things that I always try to do, and even do it here, where you're working with different people, is understanding how it's different to hand a Korean a business card than it is someone from Japan or China. Understand how to shake hands in East Africa politely, and and understand how to greet elders, particularly, say, in Nigeria. So these are things that, just a little bit of asking will inform you, and then you can go, and it'll be a lot smoother, and people will be very, very appreciative of not only the language but also the manners that you present with.
Ken, I want to thank you for that. I just wanted to make a quick point. Could you just quickly share whether or not you've ever had this experience? Because I've had this experience where you've been traveling, and when people are surprised that you're an American. So, for example, I've been in the Bahamas, and people were insisting that I was Bahamian, Or I remember being in Miami, sitting in a little coffee shop, and a guy starting to speak Spanish to me, and I was like, I don't. Well, I speak halting Spanish, and he said, no. He was telling me that I was Cuban, and then that I looked like his friend from Cuba, and et cetera. So I know a couple other times I've been in the reverse surprised when I've been in Asia and I've seen people, and they look just like the people in South America, and I was saying, oh my goodness, very good. I thought this is how people looked in Chile, but you're in Thailand. So have you had that experience where you've been places and people were either surprised you were American, or that you weren't a native of wherever you were, because they looked at you, just your physical look, and then made assumptions surrounding that?
Yeah, it's happened. I think it happens to all of us. And I remember playing basketball in Trinidad, in Port of Spain, and I hadn't said anything as the game was starting, and then the guys weren't passing me the ball, and they were messing up. So I said, and I can do a pretty good Trini accent if I want to now, but I said, look,
so 6
give me
languages.
the ball. No, and I said, give me the ball in my best DC accent. Everybody just stopped and said, oh, a Yankee, yeah, Yankee boy, and that changed the whole tenor of the thing. I remember being somewhere else, and someone asked me where I was from, and I said, I'm from the U.S., and they said, no, that's not possible. And they said, well, why isn't that possible? They said, well, you don't sound like JJ.
Wow.
And so that was quite, that was in the early 80s.
And they were
happened.
Serious, right? And that's a good point to make. They, one of the things that I tell people that, people, they see things on TV and the movies, they think that that's real if they've never met a person.
That's right. Well, they show Good Times and the Jeffersons in Nigeria and Trinidad and other places, and they show us Tarzan movies. So both are warped views of each of us. But the greatest thing is when somebody tells you that you don't have an accent. So if you can speak something cleanly enough that they can't pick up an American accent, that's the best. That's always the best. And that has happened to me, but not as often as I would hope.
Thank you so much for sharing those experiences, Ken. We really enjoyed listening to it, and we want to thank you for being here with us again today. And, as we're winding down, I just invite you to please share your contact information with our listeners so that they can learn more about you and what you do.
Oh, okay. My pleasure. So I have a website, which is not terribly fancy, but it's K2J environmental.com and www. And my phone number is 425-785-8963. Email address is K for Ken, V for Victory, B for Baker, J for Jennings, I at iCloud.com. And I have a Twitter account at KVBJ47.
Okay, excellent, Ken. Thank you so much. So again, audience, you can check Ken out at his website, www.k2jenvironmental.com, or email him at K for Ken, V for Victory, B for Baker, J for Jennings, I at iCloud.com. Give him a call at 425-785-8963, or check him out on Twitter at KVBJ47. Again, Ken, thank you so much for being with us today.
Christine, Bob, it's been wonderful. Appreciate it.
Fabulous, Ken. What final thoughts or key idea would you like our audience to take away from today's broadcast?
Well, I think to me, it's important in today's world to be centered, versatile, happy, and positive, and learn a language.
Fantastic, Ken. Thank you so much for that. So, audience, I want to thank you for listening, and I want to thank you again, Ken, for being our featured guest today. Thank you, audience, for listening, wherever you are in the world and whatever time zone you're in right now. We appreciate your presence and trust that you will benefit in some way from the information that Ken delivered during today's show. We welcome and look forward to receiving your comments about our show. Please let us know if there are additional topics you'd like to see us cover, or if there's a guest you enjoyed so much you'd like us to invite them back. Please contact us through our website with your feedback and suggestions. Remember, listeners, if you'd like to experience the same benefits coaching clients get with us, including learning how you can get more results in your day and easy ways to dissolve your chronic pain, stress, and anxiety, then give us a call at 954-900-2179, or you can email me at dr.bob@stressfreenow.info or Christine@stressfreenow.info. Mention that you heard our Stress Free Now podcast show, and your first session is absolutely free. Call or email us today for an appointment. For Christine Wright, this is Dr. Robert Wright, Jr. of www.stressfreenow.info. Until next time, be safe and be well.